Hey there, Dr. Albert Wong here. It's maybe a lazy Sunday afternoon here in the Bay Area, California. I'm in San Rafael, California. And I thought that I'd just take a moment, why not, to share with you a little bit of my understanding of polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory is, if you're in the field of trauma or psychotherapy or coaching and working with people in, activated states, polyvagal theory, well, some of you probably have heard of. It's very hip, and I think for good reason nowadays. It's a new way of conceptualizing our nervous system and the way that we are hardwired to respond. So, I thought that I would give a little bit of a description of what polyvagal theory is in as simple and just human way possible. There's a couple of good other people who have videos on this. Seth Porges, Stephen Porges' his son, has a great video. It's humorous and well put together, so you could take a look at that as well. And then there's some other folks out there too. So, but yeah, you've come here, and happy to share with you my sense of it. Okay. I like using a little kind of whiteboard pen. Hopefully this works. It helps me organize things and understand things, and maybe visually it's helpful to you too. So let's go through this and talk about our nervous system and how we cope with stress. Okay, so so for us as, I guess, human beings, the human version of beings, there's different things that we do when we're presented with stress. Okay, now if we're presented with a little bit of stress, and we'll just allow this axis here to represent the amount of stress. Stress that's being applied to our nervous system. So that's just a kind of a generic model. So up to a certain point, our preferred way of dealing with stress is to do what we call connect. Okay, to connect with other people. So the idea behind that is, okay, I'm a little bit stressed, and I don't know exactly what to do. But one thing I could do is I could phone a friend, or I could see somebody's smiling face. I could wave to somebody and they could say hello, and then I could feel myself take a deep breath, and it's like, I just connected with somebody. I'm not alone with my suffering, the stressful situation. Just by being connected to another human being feels more manageable and bearable. Sometimes there's that saying, grief shared is divided. We're meant to fight dragons. We're just not meant to fight dragons alone. That one is from Sue Johnson. But yeah, so the idea is that when I am beset with a stressful circumstance, if I add another human being consciousness to the circumstance, on some level it helps to contain or hold the level of stress. And sometimes, just by the act of connecting, the thing that was stressful regulates and downregulates, and is bearable. So suppose I have a medium stressful situation and I connect with somebody. Connection sometimes works. I think E.M. Forrester had this phrase that was just like, just connect. And that's a really good description of what we as human mammals are able to do, and we can connect. Okay. Now, that's when the amount of stress is up to a certain level. However, when stress goes beyond a certain level, and it's almost like, whoa, okay, I've tried to phone a friend or connect, see or imagine friendliness in others, and that hasn't worked, then the next mode that we go into is something called protect. Okay. So also, this can be fight or flight. Okay. So, if we're in a stressful situation and we've tried to deal with it, manage it, and maybe even connect with other people and feel restored after that. And if that doesn't work, we go into a different mode, which is the protection mode. Okay. And that's a different way of relating. We maybe tighten up or our heart goes faster. It's actually a different physiological system. And that's where the whole polyvagal thing comes in. This, the protection is governed by a different nervous system complex. Okay, we call this the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, sympathetic nervous system. And it basically increases the heart rate, the blood kind of flows faster, or we breathe more deeply, faster, shorter breaths. But our blood gets oxygenated. There are stress hormones that go through our body, and we prepare for either battle, fight, or flight. And that's what we do if stress exceeds a certain level. Okay, we go into protection mode. Okay, I just got to survive this circumstance, and I'm going to protect myself, or try and run away, physically run away, or sometimes it's like escape some other route, maybe kind of outmaneuver or figure out an escape plan or path. Okay, so so step one is we try to connect. Step two is we try to protect ourselves if connection doesn't work. Now there are also occasions when protection doesn't work, where we cannot protect ourselves, where the stress or the threat is so overwhelming that protection isn't an option. Maybe we are in an inescapable, overwhelming circumstance, okay, where we can neither defend ourselves through fight or escape through flight. Okay, and in those instances, what we do is we can't connect. There's nobody to connect with. We can't protect because we can't defend ourselves, so we can't escape. So what we do in those instances is we eject. Okay? And ejection is kind of like becoming dissociative or numb or almost here but not here. So this is basically dissociation, going numb. Nub, going numb, going numb, going numb, going numb, maybe going dumb. That was a little joke. Going numb, and shutting down. Okay. All right. This is also sometimes called flop and drop. I like that name. Like when you see people go faint or just, almost like their body loses its vibrancy, like, and their eyes go glazed over. So if sympathetic nervous system, stage 2, protect, is fight or flight, stage 3, which is actually, so this is where it gets a little technical, but the name of this nervous system complex is the dorsal vagal. system. Okay. When the dorsal vagal system kicks in, we can go into dorsal vagal shutdown, which is basically flop and drop. Okay. So fight or flight, flop or drop. Connection is the social engagement system. Okay. Okay. So this is, I feel safe and secure, I connect, right? And I'm curious, right? So safe and secure. And this is governed by, and this is a little technical, this is called the ventral vagal nervous system. Okay. So the idea here is that this 1, 2, 3 should feel somewhat intuitive, right? Okay. Yeah, when I'm a little bit stressed, I connect with people. When I'm more stressed, I try and just protect myself. And when I'm super stressed, I just eject from the circumstance. I get out of Dodge. Like my body goes numb, I dissociate, I can't feel. Okay. So those are the 3 things that we do. And if you think about it, you might that might vibe with your understanding of what you do, right? You might kind of have some experience with that. The brilliant insight from Stephen Porges is that these relatively intuitive responses that we have to stress actually have a neurophysiological underpinning. Okay. That there is a particular ventral vagal nerve, okay, or nerve complex that wires us and enables connection, right? And that there's a separate nervous system complex that wires us for protection, and that there is a third nervous system complex, nerve complex, that wires us for this as well. Okay. And it's in some ways hardwired in. I think the great insight is that if you ever have found yourself numbing out or ejecting or dissociating or going numb or shutting down, it's not your fault. It's hardwired into us evolutionarily through our dorsal vagal system. Okay. If you ever find yourself in kind of rages or anxieties where you're feeling really flighty and needing to escape and scared all the time, right? It's possible that your sympathetic nervous system is running the show, and it's not your fault. And so on some level, it's hardwired into our system. Okay. And if you can rediscover this option, the connection option, it can give you a route out of the dorsal vagal shutdown or the sympathetic nervous system fight or flight activation. So this is, in a nutshell, the essentials of polyvagal theory. Now, why is this called polyvagal theory? Because 2 of these states are from the vagus nerve, okay? State, the ventral vagal, complex, and you could call it the ventral vagal nerve or the ventral vagal nerve complex. It's a big nerve, so it kind of winds and wanders and goes all around. That's what vagus means. So the vagus nerve there's 2 parts to it: the ventral vagus which is this part here that governs connection. And then we have the dorsal vagal. Nerve. And it's more like a nerve complex because it wanders around. Okay. So polyvagal theory basically posits, it's a theory. So I just want to emphasize that. It's still kind of not evidentially natural law or a fact just yet. It's a theory, but it's a theory that seems to be backed by many people's experiences. So, so the polyvagal theory says there are two branches of the vagus nerve: the ventral vagal complex, which is our most recently evolutionarily evolved system, right? Which allows us to do human mammalian things like connect, like look to a friend and feel soothed, right? So basically polyvagal theory says that there are at least two branches of the vagus nerve: a ventral vagal complex that is helps us connect and soothe ourselves. And then there's the dorsal vagal nerve complex, which helps us, which is an evolutionarily really, I don't know if primitive is the right word, but it's just an earlier in evolution kind of system. And it helps us eject. Okay. It helps us flop and drop and go numb. And that is connected to the dorsal vagal complex. Okay. So the theory is that dorsal vagal evolved first, and we learned to do things like flop and drop, right? Or just go numb. Because, you know, if you're overwhelmed and you just flop and drop and go still, that actually is an evolutionarily successful, I don't know, adaptation, at least in some circumstances. If you're a reptile and there's something threatening and you just become very still, you look like a stick, not as likely to be seen. You can escape from a predator that way. Okay. So, yeah, so it can be evolutionary adaptive, especially for, you know, more primitive evolutionary beings, right? To do that, right? And we have the remnants of that in our physiology. It's something that we have. It's a carryover, and it actually can help sometimes. Sometimes fighting back leads to death, right? So it's good that we have a tripwire on some level that makes us go numb, shut down, and eject. So yeah, but the polyvagal theory suggests that dorsal vagal evolved first, followed by the sympathetic nervous system that evolved second. So almost like if this is the amount of stress and what we use to cope with the stress, and it goes up like that. If we look at the timeline of evolution, like evolution went like this, okay? Like we evolved first, we learned how to eject, okay? Then we learned how to protect. And then last but not least, we learned how to connect, right? And we became more and more nuanced in our ability to adapt to a threat, right? Ejection is kind of like, it's just like a switch on or off. It's like not very nuanced. It's just like, okay, you go blank, you go numb, right? And that's the dorsal vagal, and it works to some extent. But, you know, and then you can learn to protect, which is also, it can be quite nuanced, but the most nuanced is, okay, you can learn to connect with others and that's the most kind of highest on the evolutionary rung. Okay, so so that's polyvagal theory in a nutshell. Yeah, and I think why people love it so much is it gives voice to experiences that resonate inside people's beings. Like, yeah, like the people understand that, I don't know, like sometimes when people experience trauma, especially if they dissociate or go numb, they don't understand why that happened. They feel a lot of shame or self-blame around that. And, I think polyvagal theory really frees us up from feeling that shame or self-blame, because it's part of the nervous system that evolved to protect us in some level. Like sometimes going numb is an adaptive response to overwhelm and a threat that you cannot fight back against or flee from. Okay. So, yeah. So I'll put I'll save the whiteboard in case you want a copy of that. But that is polyvagal theory in a nutshell. Hope that was helpful. And yeah, we'll see you around. Take care.